Hey folks, this is Ben Gessel. How's it going? Um, okay, as I said before, I think I'm past some of the busiest area of summer, Christmas stuff. Thankfully, good Lord. Sorry. Like, ah, actually, the question is that profanity I would just said? I don't know. Man, if you guys were in my shoes, with my schedule I've had, I think you'd understand why. I'm just like, oh, I'm just glad it's all over with. Just a lot of stuff. It's really hard, by the way, sometimes if you have something early in the morning, then an hour or two later, something else, a few things going on, then move forward another few hours, and then something else going on, and something else going on a little bit after that, give a few hours, and then, and it just keeps going like that until it's time to go to bed. And but no, there's something else you have to do. Oh my gosh, man. that's how that's literally how it's been. Because in December, especially like the closer we get to Christmas, we have some people that aren't doing lessons. And so driving to a student's home, waiting sometimes a bit longer to go to the next lesson, little things here and there, it all adds up. And it's like, I can't just have the day off, or I can't just have half the day off. No, no, no. It has to be this thing where I have to be watching the phone so I'm not late to the next thing. That's how it's been. That's what it's been like. It's really hard to have in-depth, more meaningful, creative, imaginative, productive, musically times. That's what I want to do this next week is have some time to do some real composition. So like, I don't want to have to do all this stuff that. How can I put this? My parents are always great. Whatever stuff we do that I wasn't planning on doing that involves any kind of work whatsoever, it always tends to be a good thing. I just like my downtime, and I'm not really very worried about not having a lot of downtime because I want downtime. I need downtime. I've been so unbelievably busy with students. I want to see that I'm earning more money. I want to see that. I'm putting a lot of effort into teaching right now. It's like, so sometimes it's got to the point where I have a student. I call a student by the wrong name. It's some other guy's name. It's happening more and more, and I keep apologizing, and like it goes over okay. But it's like, oh, just by the way, in case anybody's curious about this, like I really try to make everybody's um, lessons, all my students, like I always put 150% in. I always put tons of effort into teaching, so much effort. It matters. It matters that I do a good job teaching to me. It really does, and I can't stand it if I feel like I did something half-hearted that way. By that same token, um, you know, it's how can I put this? Uh, trying to word this the right way, I suppose. Um, if it ever has been the case, maybe for one parent it might have been, but I think that's all water under the bridge. If any parent has ever wondered if I have those tendencies put to um, to want to spend more time with their kid in a more unhealthy relationship type of thing. If anyone's ever had that train of thought, all they have to realize is that whether or not I have only a dozen students, or if I have at this point, I can have 35 students right now, going to 40 or something like that. Either way, I mean, especially in the case of right now it being so many. I mean, if I'm calling a kid by the wrong name, so it's someone else's name, and I'm just trying to remember, okay, what is this kid doing? Where are they at musically? I understand what's going on with their personality. They're cutesy, or they're fun if they're younger, or they have this growing. musicianship and they're getting more mature, if they're teens, whatever it is. I mean, my thoughts are always, generally speaking, I mean, 95 to 99% of the time, it's just about music. And whenever it's something other than that, like the kid is telling me about their day, or they're telling me about Harry Potter, or they're telling me about something, and it's always, what really is, it's fun. It's one of the best things about teaching is you get, it's when, it's hard to explain, but it's like, it's the kid talking. It's not me. I just sometimes say things like, wow, you might love this movie or something like that. Or you might like this kind of music, or that sounds like a fun thing you guys did. Wow, man. It just shows that, you're not like a total stranger to the student, and that, it's actually a very good thing. It's a very healthy thing in the student-teacher relationship to have those kinds of things happen. Sure, absolutely. So of course I don't have any weird thoughts about, what I should say is, I mean, I don't want to spend unusually long periods of time with kids. Obviously, that's, I mean, just to socialize with them. That definitely is. Not really something that I would do. But I mention this because, oh gosh, what was it? Yeah, I know what the train of thought was. It's kind of like, um um I've noticed, by the way, in my own teaching, when you when the kid knows who you are. I have adult students too. It's a different story somewhat, but it's still kind of similar and a lot of, but basically when the student knows you and you know the kid, and there's a relationship of trust that's been built, and they trust you, and the nature of the student-teacher relationship is such that the student trusts you and the parents trust you, and you don't want to, it's like you would never think about ever taking advantage of that trust in any way whatsoever. You know, it's something that when I was in college, I never realized just how big of a deal that was. I didn't really intend on talking about this subject too much, but it's just kind of like, I mean, you can't look a kid in the eye, especially, and you can't, in my case, oh gosh, and this, people get the wrong idea about all this stuff all the flipping time. First off, you can't look, no teacher can look a kid in the eye, a little kid, and be like, um, weird thoughts. It's like, if it, I mean, you know what I mean. It's like, no, I mean, like instead of that, it's, oh man, you're such a little cutie. If you tripped and fell, I would hopefully have a band-aid and help. It's like, oh, stick out your lower lip a little bit, like, poke my heart a little bit. It's 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 always that way. But these little kids help you. They just make your day somehow. It's hard to explain. And so for the teenagers, when they're not quite adults yet, you know, sure. I mean, it's, being a human, being a, teachers will notice things, but we just put it out of our brains. If we are behaving ourselves and we are goodly teachers, if we notice a attractive teenager, we'll say, nope, that's a teenager, right? And so it's tough. It's weird in a way because teenagers, they are gonna ask weird questions, and they're gonna, um, the nature of sometimes the music we're working on tends to be sometimes more emotional and romantic, expressive, and all that stuff. These emotions that little kids don't have any, you know what I'm talking about. And so when you're discussing this stuff, and you know, again, I didn't really in college. I didn't really think about this too much. But what I found tends to work really well. You just stick to the music. By the way, as a music teacher, you just stick to what it is that you're actually teaching. And if the student goes on a tangent if they're talking about something romantic, you listen and you go, "Oh, that's very okay," you know. You just listen. But there's some things that I'll just never do, you know, if they're a teenager. If they're an adult student, if there's some real interest shown romantically toward me, for instance, what I'd have to do in that case is say, "Okay, do you want to date?" And we can't really. I mean that you shouldn't pay me money for lessons anymore for dating, right? It should be it becomes a different relationship. But that's just a private student. That's another adult. That's a different thing. But with adult students, you can talk about anything, and there's a lot. It's a little different thing where you don't have to have the parents' permission because they're on their own. They're adults. But even so, young adults in their 20s still, some of them have their parents kind of attached to lessons and all that thing. Yep, yep. I know all this stuff. Yes, absolutely. Um, where's it going with all this? I would tell parents, like, I just literally don't have the energy or the wherewithal a lot of times to ever have an inappropriate situation happen. It just no. If I mean, I know I'm aware of the nature of my own thoughts. I'll put it that way. I'm aware of the nature of my own thoughts, and I've taught long enough to know when something is getting a little bit weird, and I've managed to keep my nose clean, right? Um, but as you guys know, kids are kids. Teenagers, they're curious about all kinds of stuff. They don't know what teachers are supposed to talk about, not talk about, whatever. They have no idea. Teachers don't want to have the kids feel awkward simply because they're asking innocent questions about whatever. And they start out with music, and then it can go to anything. So teachers always are respectful to the students, but they will say for some questions, "That's a good question for your parents." And that's the way to handle the teenagers. And that's usually all you have to do. With adult students, it's just you can talk about anything, literally anything, as long as the adult student's okay with that subject matter. So I mean, it's we didn't talk about this stuff when I was in college. Why didn't we talk about it? I don't know. That this anyway. If I just go on about some stuff, just understand, folks, it's been a very busy week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, month. I don't know. It's getting crazy. All I have to do tomorrow is a few things I have to do, and I just don't care. Right now you're just hearing thoughts. um. Anyway, so I think I'm in a pretty good spot here in terms of that whole maze of things. Even so, I'm still bound to get people that will misunderstand me, my personality, how I think, how I am. And as I mentioned before in an earlier video, that's already happened with um, an LDS family talking to the mom. You know, I can't explain. I don't know why I had Asperger's syndrome to a mild extent. I don't remember asking for it. This is all before I was born in the pre-existence. As we believe religiously, we're born with certain things, or we're born through conditions, or whatever it is. Or, there's so many things that I don't remember because it's all before I was born. But Asperger's syndrome, as I mentioned, I have it mildly. It's something you're born with. It's not something that there's some things that you might have if you take drugs, like schizophrenia, perhaps. I don't know. Every situation is a little different. But this isn't the sort of thing. I mentioned this, Asperger's and whatever else. There's a girl I remember seeing, a young woman. I remember seeing some of her videos, and she's over in New York or something. She does computer stuff, and she's got it Asperger's a little bit more severely than I do. Very nice girl. Some part of me really connects with those kinds of girls. I don't know. Yeah, she's very shy. Yeah, she's very, you know, yeah, yeah. So I tend to be very soft-hearted, I guess you could say, toward women with Asperger's syndrome. I know obviously I would be um, extra, extra nice. Seriously, I'm that way. I think I ought to be more that way in some respects, I suppose, to women, but especially if I know if a woman's more sensitive, if I really find her agreeable, if I'm interested in her romantically, or if she's just has Asperger's or something similar to that, autism, and she's very sensitive, or something similar, yeah, I mean, I would absolutely treat her amazingly. I would be very, very, very kind to her, very extra patient, all these things. It would be second nature. And especially some of these kinds of women, they never think remotely about um, trying to mess with you mentally or your emotions. That's the furthest thing from some of these women's minds. And sometimes that's why I think they're so awesome and special and amazing. Even if I'm not attracted to them, even if that's not a romantic thing at all. Anyway, So anyway, I'm mentioning this Asperger stuff. And I mentioned this thing a while back. Um, with parents, I'll mention this on this with parents. I just really feel like it's important, really important actually, that the parents are on the same page I am with regard to how what I'm there for, and also the parents are knowing how I am, what's going on in my mind, in my heart, what kind of what's my teaching philosophy, what's my whole approach to music and my methods and all this stuff. I want them to know all this stuff. I'm very open about this stuff. A lot of teachers aren't. I am. And I will also divulge they have Asperger's. Why? Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I tell them? I want them to know. I want them to know that I've worked very hard to overcome some of these weaknesses and obstacles about this stuff. I want them to know that when I have perfect pitch, I can name things. You play any harmony, I'll name it immediately. Any series of notes, doesn't matter how many, I'll name them all. The quality of the chord, all the extensions, that's like eating a chocolate chip cookie to me. It's eating a piece of a cake or pie, whatever. Eating. It's literally as easy as eating something to me. But the reason I can do this, the reason I can write music without needing a piano, and I can write blindingly fast, great music, good melodies. A lot of that's because I have Asperger's syndrome. My mom was very intelligent. So was my dad. My mom was an English major. My dad was a math major. I don't know. They have both qualities in their genes and psyches and spiritual things, and that was their kid. I was their boy. That's the first one. I'm a musician. And there's some Asperger's lines on my mom's side. Why wouldn't I tell a parent this? Are the parents that I work with, teaching their kids, are they complete strangers? As I've been told by one of my employers I work with? No, they're not complete strangers. But when you meet someone for the very first time, you're still getting to know them. You're kind of a little bit like that, but not really. The idea is that they get to know you over time. And if as I have been, open with parents about who I am and how I teach, that's the whole idea behind that, is so that they can feel there's a relationship of trust there. They trust that I'm being very open and honest with them about who I am, about my abilities, about my own psyche, about emotions, all this stuff. And if a parent doesn't want to know all this stuff and doesn't want to be on the same page as me, then they have to know that if there's any issues in the future, that they can't blame that on me. I did my best to try to be very transparent with them about what was going on with me, my own psyche, my own whatever. If I tried my best. Of course, we're not talking about punctuality. We could, of course. We're not talking about forgetting things. We're not talking about a number of things. We're just talking about the way I talk, the way I am with students, the way I am with people in general, the way I approach music. I'm not gonna. Look, and I'm not gonna have someone sign a contract that they have to take lessons for a whole year. Otherwise, I'm taking them to court. These parents and these students I work with, they're not strangers to me. They're not. Even if it's a professional relationship we have, that doesn't mean we're strangers. That's not even the nature of music education, private music instruction. My own teachers that I've had, they're not strangers. They know who I am. They remember my mom. One of my horn teachers remembers when my mom came over. She really thought well of her. I love that about one of my horn teachers. That's a good thing. They're not complete strangers. That horn teacher I had and my mom, they know each other. They're not complete strangers. I like that. I've always liked that. That's how I want things to be. Is it the case that private music instructors have to be best friends with the students, with parents? If that happens, awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. Does a teacher lose some of their teaching authority or ability to discipline, right? The disciplining thing. Does a teacher lose their ability to discipline if they become too much like a buddy or a friend with the kid? No, not really, because the reason why is because, especially for little kids, but even teenagers, a student will recognize when a teacher is not only far more skilled than they are musically, but also far more mature and far more just they know what's going on. They know what they're doing. They are the teacher. And they'll recognize that. And so they will do what they're told if they want to keep going with lessons. A teacher doesn't have to get out the ruler and whack the kid on the wrist. The teacher doesn't have to use especially like a firm tone of voice. But sometimes I find it's helpful for certain kids that maybe have attention troubles to kind of have a little bit more of it's helpful for teachers to have a tone of voice that can help them to kind of refocus. Yeah, that's something that can happen. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes this is a cultural thing, the different relationships that parents can have with teachers. From country to country, it might vary a bit in terms of what different societies think is more proper, I guess. But there is no one size fits all with this thing, this whole thing. There is no. I mean, what if you find a book someone wrote about etiquette in this kind of job, teaching music education from this job to this job to this job to this, there might be a book about you can read about that, but it's not going to apply to every situation. It's not going to apply to every country. It's not going to apply to. So it's a society thing. It's a cultural thing. The culture of the United States, in Washington, it's going to be a little different when you go to the Midwest or the Northeast or whatever. But there's going to be a lot of similarities. When you go to Europe, it's going to be a little different sometimes, depending which country you're going to. Go to Asia, it's going to be a little different. Go to Africa, it's going to be a little different. It's all going to be a little different. Mexico, Brazil, whatever. Hawaii, it's all a little different, but there's going to be some things that probably will be fairly consistent. Fairly. But yeah, one of the main trains of thought is, do you never talk to the parents unless you're talking about, okay, we got a recital coming up, or something. Your kid needs to practice more. Yeah, you could do that. Some teachers do that. A lot of times they don't. Um, I could never be that way myself. I've realized I'm not that kind of teacher. I just, I don't like treating parents like crap. I feel terrible about it. I could never do it. I mean, I know that's not how the other private teachers are that do that. But I'm not that way. Um, when I'm having lessons in the student's home, in particular in those cases, how awkward is that then to just be very indifferent to the parents? But if the parents, or it could be just the dad, or whoever, if the parents are a bit more standoffish, that's okay. I've learned that I don't take that the wrong way. They like that I'm there to do a good job teaching, and I feel good. I felt great about that. I would have liked to have maybe talked to them more, but if they didn't want to do that because of the teacher, that's just fine too. That's okay. I've realized in those cases it can work out. But when I mention again these things, it like Asperger's, the whole intention is to have the parents understand who I am and how I operate and just, how I just operate, how I am. I'll write music for students. It's no big deal. It doesn't take very long. Maybe it gets a little bit more time intensive if I'm talking about writing something much more advanced for a older teenager, or, adult student, whatever. But I enjoy that sort of thing, and I'll have that music, forever. So it becomes very easy, by the way, to just print off music that is addition to new methods that you're using, whether it's French horn in my case or piano. It's very easy to supplement everything that you're doing with the books by the additional music that I have over time. It's going to get easier and easier the more I have, the more music I've written. It's a great thing. But anyway, I'm going to just talk about this stuff. Again, planning on putting a lot of videos out there. A lot of stuff that's probably just been pent up this month that I just want to talk right now, I guess. That's all. But, yeah. I just find that a lot of times there's a lot of people that are really jacked up. I mentioned this before, but they can be Mormon too. Really jacked up, really messed up. A lot of people don't have the slightest idea what's going on with psychology. They'll observe things about people, maybe not Asperger's, maybe, but they won't know. People don't know what it's like to have that stuff. Their psyche. People don't know that sometimes it's embarrassing, sometimes it's not. In the case of Asperger's syndrome, it's not really embarrassing because it involves both strengths and weaknesses. And you're born with this stuff. You're born with the condition. It's just the way your brain's hardwired. I cannot digest. No, let me rephrase that. The proteins, the casein in dairy, and there's a protein like gluten in certain grains like wheat and oats and rye, and also simple sugars. If I get enough of those three things, the casein, gluten, and the sugar, and in my brain, it's gonna act like opium, and I'm gonna be just very silly, like lightheaded. If I get enough of that in my system, that's not digested. By the way, the only reason why that's happening is because I have Asperger's syndrome. It's not a big thing. It's just the way I was born. It's like, what does celery taste like? It tastes like celery. It's kind of salty. It's kind of vegetable-y. It's like having Asperger's syndrome. I just have it. I don't remember asking for it. I don't know what it's like not having Asperger's syndrome. Whatever it's like not having it, that's not having it. That's fine. It's no big thing. It's like, what's it like being black? I don't know. I'm not black. But if I was black, oh, well, that's interesting. Okay. What's it like being white? What's it like having blonde hair and blue eyes? I don't know. Look in the mirror. I have blue eyes. Wow, that's kind of cool. Awesome. Yay. Big blonde hair. Cool. Yay. Yeah. But take it for granted. I don't know. It's like, what if I had, I don't know, curly red hair or something? Or what if I was 6'3"? Or what if I was 5 foot? These things, they just really aren't that big of a thing. But when it comes to Asperger's or anything that's psychological, and it's helpful for the parents to go, oh, okay. That's what I like to have happen there. It's not like I'm telling parents that I'm gonna be some basket case, or I'm like gonna need, I don't know. I don't know what people think about this stuff. It's like, do they think that once I tell them this stuff that it's like something, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm telling them that I've never been married, but let's say I've been divorced 3 times. It's not like I'm talking about all this really deeply personal stuff. It's not. They should know that I'm not going to be these kinds of teachers. That's what I want them to know. That's the whole rhyme and reason behind it. And that sets a good, firm groundwork for future stuff that we'll talk about, to build relationships of trust. And that phrase, by the way, is used in missionary discussions, at least, to build relationships of trust. That's a kind of a LDS missionary thing. Anyway, at least earlier. All right, catch you guys later. Leave the thoughts and comments below. Take care. Bye.